Welcome back to SCV Today. It's time for us to bring in Mike Bjorkman and talk about some real estate. And Mike, we've got some things here, 14 things to consider before buying a home. And it's interesting.
We won't go over all 14.
We're not going to go over all 14, but I mean,
this was. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk about the main things that people don't talk about or think about when they're buying a home. They think, oh, I love this home, this is it. But there's so many more factors than just falling in love with this home.
Right. It's and you know, Tammy's been seeing it a lot lately. I mean, she sold 4 or 5 houses this week, and so we go over these things with the buyers before problems happen. So a lot of times escrows are falling out left and right, and it's because the buyers get all caught up in the grandeur of this new home, and they're just so emotionally jumping in. But then it's our job to pull them back and say, okay, take a few of these things into consideration. So we wrote down a few things that we just normally go over with people, and there's some good ideas for if somebody's in the market now buying a home. Jot some of these things down and take them into consideration because that is important.
So go visit at various times of the day.
Yeah, and we learned that the other day. Neighborhoods turn into thoroughfares for schools. You never know, your neighbor might have band practice every night at 8 o'clock at night. You don't like that. Busy streets are usually what happens. Right. Near school areas, or they're shortcuts. You just don't realize it. And then when you see it's traffic time, people avoid a couple lights and down your street. Mm-hmm. Totally can make your escrow fall apart, make you get so not emotionally attached to the home. And that usually happens a week or two into the escrow, and it affects a lot of people's lives.
Well, one of the biggest things, too, is you could be moving into a neighborhood that's filled with children, and you might not like children. And all of a sudden you realize at 5 p.m. it becomes the playground, your front yard, your cul-de-sac. The dream cul-de-sac you wanted is now the playground for all the 35 neighborhood kids. So that's why you need to check it out all throughout the day. Sorry, it's your segment.
No. That's a really good point. we recently sold a home to somebody up in Westridge, and they loved this other cul-de-sac, but like she said, after school it became Kids Central, and then we sold our house one cul-de-sac up that wasn't like that. So good thing we did it before we got into escrow too.
Research recent local news, it says here. Talk about why that.
There's a lot of different ways, and I don't really necessarily say the news, but check with the city, check with building and safety, those types of things, because if your house was, and it's not so common anymore, but a lot of homes were red tagged or yellow tagged during the earthquake. A lot of homes have notices of abatement on them, or they used to, and check for permits and things like that. Because a lot of properties we sell that are unpermitted, maybe they're not to code, or maybe the buyer plans to permit it and finds out it wasn't built to city standards, and then we have a huge problem later on. We just had a detached patio cover raised up with connected to a pool with a jacuzzi, the whole thing, and it's been a nightmare going through the city trying to get permits for this, home after they already bought it, so.
Well, as far as the news goes, because I know on scvnews.com, we've got a crime blotter where you could literally just even Google crime and the street number or the neighborhood that you're looking at, and it'll show you what's going on in that neighborhood, especially for someone moving into Santa Clarita Valley and they don't know. They just think, oh, Santa Clarita Valley. Well, of course, there are some pockets of Santa Clarita that aren't fantastic, and you might want to look into that, and that's a great way to do it.
You might want to find out what the seller or other agents not disclosing of that particular property.
Exactly.
So it's really important to look at that as well.
Finding out about the homeowners association is important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, isn't that usually posted though, or is it not? Really?
Not posted anywhere. Homeowners associations have CC&Rs that are enforced that are this thick. Unfortunately, the title company or homeowners association management company doesn't get them in a proper amount of time. So the biggest thing that's been happening lately in Santa Clarita is people want to put their RVs on side of homes, and then they find out they have to be completely hidden, which in a lot of these times you can't do. So that's upsetting transactions where they can't have their motorhome in there or whatnot. And just sometimes it's colors, and sometimes you have to have, if you want to redo landscaping. We just had a client that bought the home years ago, but they wanted to put these crazy fountains going up their thing, and they couldn't do it because of the association. And they called me and said, "You never told me I couldn't do that." And I'm like, "Well, who knew you wanted to put, elaborate fountains coming down your front yard?" Yeah, so, over the years you just hear crazy things. So we always want to say, research your homeowners association. There's been people that have called me and said, we didn't even know we had an association pool until after the neighbors told us after we closed escrow. And I'm just like, wow. So
Yeah,
you want to
really
look into that. Or
research it.
tennis courts. A lot of people have no idea they have tennis courts. Some of them are hidden. It was amazing. Or the other day we actually saved a deal up in Newhall. They have community RV parking. And that was a brilliant thing that the owner wanted. He goes, "Hey, that's really cool. I can bring my boat over there."
Right.
So that worked out good.
One of the things that really stood out to me on this list, ask for utility bills. I never thought about something like that, but that really does make a lot of sense.
It's possible to get into trouble later. A lot of people move from other parts of the country, especially, where they may even have heating oil, not even natural gas. But typically it's electric bills. Our electric bills are quite shocking. Buyers sometimes will freak out when they find out a $500 electric bill is normal here. And if you're coming from parts of Wisconsin or something, you'll know that $500 is most people's house payments.
Right.
So when they say, "Here, I got $1,000 of monthly utilities," they can't afford that. So, you want to disclose that or at least look into that. We always tell people to look at utilities, call the companies and see what the average is over the year.
Extremely important for first-time buyers too, because generally coming from probably an apartment or something like that, where their utility bill is usually around $150, and they're thinking, "Oh, it'll be $100 more." That's a big hit when they get their bill, and all of a sudden they're $400 or $500 more than what they had allotted for.
Is there an obligation for the seller to disclose utility
Not
bills?
utility bills, no.
Because that's
So that's why we write things like this down to say, hey, these are some of the things we do above and beyond to make sure they're protected.
Consider the view, and not just your view of the valley, but your view from every aspect of the house.
Yeah, there's plenty of things that'll pop up. Speaking of view, we had a situation just the other day where trees were growing into this view, and the buyer of the home said, "No big deal, I'll just cut them down so I have the view back." Well, no, you can't just cut your neighbor's trees down.
Right.
So that was a consideration. View from everywhere. Power lines get in the way, unsightly neighbors. There's just situations where you see things from upstairs into people's yards that might freak you out a little bit. I don't know how to say that on TV nicely.
I mean, and then there's the situation, and this is one for me. You're in your kitchen doing your dishes, and you look up and you see the neighbor next door doing her dishes, and that freaks for me. That would freak me out. I could fall in love with the home, never even really consider that, but I would really have to go and look literally from every window to get that view, because that to me is like that freaks me out.
Yeah, we sold some new construction the other day that 2 big master bedroom windows were exactly side by side.
Wow.
I just couldn't believe it. And I just thought that was really unusual. I'm like, well, if you forget to put the blinds down.
No kidding. Look out. Okay, we've
Hopefully
only got a minute left to go. We're starting to run a little behind. The last one you have on the list, though, I think is important. Explore the surrounding area. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we kind of covered before. There could be crime. There could be something that you're not interested in, like possibly the school, the traffic situation. There's a particular incident that we came across a while back up Bouquet where left turns are really hard to do at certain times of the day. And the buyer didn't want to buy the house because of that. And I was glad we told him that up front, because if it happened 3 weeks into escrow, now we're having a big problem again. So, the whole area, maybe you don't want to be so close to a certain commercial project that might have noise, or, you think might bring your property value down, or
Here's a good
or
one.
what
you
else
have
is
on-
being built in your area.
You have on here if the home's near a fire station or a police station or the hospital.
Like when I lived on close to McBean in the hospital over there behind Granary Square, that's just something you learned how to deal with. There was ambulances every 5 minutes, and helicopter landing on the hospital was like, you think you're quiet all behind Granary Square, but there's a lot of action. Or I lived up Bouquet, at the end of Bouquet, and on the weekends it's Harley after Harley after Harley coming by. So, those are the types of things that really can impact your desire to be in the home.
I'm just thinking of a situation, people that live up in Tesoro, people think of the prison and they think Castaic. Well, they don't realize that in
right over the
Tesoro, they're actually closer to the prison
Wow.
than we are in Castaic.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just boop over the hill. And I know the first time those alarms went off, there were people that were living up there like, what is that? What is going on? And they had no idea. So it was really, really important to really to care about your purchase and where you're going. And this is a lifetime decision. So
It's more
you need
important to have the agent because, again, people get so caught up that they don't think of these things. And you're right, when we were selling Tesoro, when it was being built, everybody's running around disclosing Melrose, but I'm like, hey, you guys, you have a jail literally over that hill. And it was a big deal for Castaic. And so when people are spending, $700,000-800,000 on a house, it's even a bigger deal. So we had to make sure we disclosed that. And there was a lot of people that backed out of their sale.
I believe it.
I mean, I could care less. I mean, I've seen inmates running over those hills before in the past. And
grow up out here, you've seen several of them.
exactly. We used to go try to chase them with our motorcycles.
I see one. Yeah. Our walkie-talkies. Hey,
Get
boom,
'em.
boom, boom. I got one to my right.
All right, Mike, thank you again. Always, it's good to have you here. Home Smart Real Estate. Always appreciate the good stuff that you bring in.
Thanks, man.
And that's going to do it for us today.
Good program. Very good.
Thanks for sharing a part of your day with us. Have a good rest of your day.